morning to all of you. Today we are going to discuss on interrupts. The module 3 covers types of interrupts, inter-service routing, handling interrupts in 8086 and interrupt programming. First we can see what is an interrupt. So interrupt is one of the most important feature in microcontroller applications. Consider a microprocessor system which receives data and change in status from IO port or IO device. There are two methods available to obtain an input. One is polling and the second one is interrupt method. And in interrupt method, whenever any device needs service from microprocessor, the device notifies to the processor by sending a signal. So that signal is called interrupt. After receiving an interrupt signal, the microprocessor holds whatever it is doing and serves the corresponding device. So we can say that the interrupt breaks the normal sequences of execution of instructions and diverts to the execution of some other program called interrupt service routine. The program associated with the interrupt is called interrupt service routine or interrupt handler. For every interrupt, there must be an interrupt service routine. When an interrupt is invoked, the microprocessor runs the interrupt service routine. For every interrupt, there is a fixed location in memory that holds the address of its ISR. The group of memory locations set aside to hold the address of ISR is called interrupt vector table that we will discuss later. So we can say that an interrupt is a condition that causes the microprocessor to temporarily work on different tasks and return to its previous task. So whenever the interrupt occurs, the processor completes or stops the execution of the current instruction and start execution of an interrupt service routine. And the interrupt service routine is the program that tells the processor what to do when the interrupt occurs. So after executing the ISR, the control returned back to the main program where it was interrupted. So the status of the program being executed must be saved first before the control goes to ISR. The status of the program being executed must be saved. So the processor registers will be saved on the stack, and the program counter, the content of program counter should be saved. And once the program counter has been, that means after completing this ISR, after execution of the ISR, there will be a return statement will be there. So the control will return back to the main program. Then the content of the stack will be reloaded to the corresponding registers. So we have discussed polling and interrupts. So in the case of polling, the microprocessor continuously monitors the status of a given device when the status condition is met. So if the status condition is met, then it performs the service. So after that, it moves on to the next device until each one is serviced. The polling can monitor the status of several devices and serve each of them if certain conditions are met. So the advantages of interrupt is that the microprocessor can serve many devices. Each devices can get attention of this microprocessor based on the priority assigned to it. But in the case of polling, we are not assigning any priority. And the interrupt method, in interrupt method, the microprocessor can ignore or mask a device request for the service. But this is not possible in the polling method. And the interrupt method is always more preferable when compared to the polling method, because in polling method that waste much of the microprocessor time by polling devices that do not need any service. So now we can see how the processor get interrupted. The microprocessors allow normal program execution to be interrupted in order to carry out a specific task or work. The processor can be interrupted in the following ways. First one, by an external signal generated by a peripheral. And the second one, by an internal signal generated by a special instruction in the program, by executing a instruction in the program. And the third, by an internal signal generated due to an exceptional condition which occurs while executing an instruction. For example, we can see that while executing some division operation and some error is occurred, that means divide by 0 is an exceptional condition. So that will invoke a type 0 interrupt. Now we can see the classification of interrupts. In general, the interrupts can be classified in the following three ways: hardware and software interrupts, maskable and non-maskable interrupt, vectored and non-vectored interrupts. First, we can see hardware and software interrupts. So, hardware interrupts are caused by an external hardware module. So, hardware interrupts are generated by hardware devices when something unusual happens. So, this could be a key press or mouse move or any other action. So, the Intel microprocessors support hardware interrupts through two pins that allows interrupt request. They are INTR and NMI. That two pins we already discussed. So, this INTR is a maskable hardware interrupt and NMI is a non-maskable hardware interrupt. And if the processor accepts this request, then it acknowledges through the pin INTA. Next is software interrupt. So, software interrupts are also called internal interrupts, or there are some instructions are there. So, first one is INTN. So, INTN is where N is the interrupt number. INTN instruction. So, any one interrupt from available from 256 interrupts. So, that means we can at the bottom you can see the example. You can see that INTN, that is a software instruction. So 8086 INTN instruction can be used to trigger the 8086 to do any one of the 256 possible interrupt. So the syntax is INTEN, where N determines the corresponding interrupt. So that means an instruction INT32 means that causes the 8086 to do a type 32 interrupt response. So that means the desired interrupt type is specified as part of the instruction. There are type 02 through type 255 interrupts are there. So the 8086 will push the flag register on the stack and reset trap flag, interrupt flag, and push the CS and IP values of the next instruction on the stack. Next is processor exception, that is divide error. So that means 8086 automatically do a type 0 interrupt if the result of a division operation is too large or it is not fit in that designated destination register, or if some error situation occurs, then it will invoke the type 0. Next is single step interrupt. The use of single step execution feature is that it is mainly we are using in the monitor and debugger program. That means in the case of a single step mode, the system will execute one instruction and stop. We can examine the content of registers and memory location after execution of each instruction. So in other words, we can say that when in single step mode, a system will stop after it execute each instruction and wait for further direction from the user. So after execution of each instruction, it will wait for the next instruction from or direction from the user according to the condition of the registers and memory location. The next one is INT instruction breakpoint interrupt. So the type 3 interrupt is produced by execution of INT3 instruction. The main use of type 3 interrupt is to implement the breakpoint function in a system. Whenever we need a breakpoint, the system executes the instructions up to the breakpoint and then goes to the breakpoint procedure. Next is INTO instruction, that is overflow interrupt. That is type 4. 8086 overflow flag will be set if a signed result of an execution, that means an execution of a arithmetic operation, the result, if the result is not fit in the destination register, then the over flag will be set. So we can say that if a signed result of an arithmetic operation on two signed numbers is too large to be represented in the destination register or memory location, this overflag bit will be set. So that will invoke type 4 interrupt. So these are the software interrupts. Now coming to the maskable and non-maskable interrupt. So the interrupt whose request can be either accepted or rejected by the processor are called maskable interrupt. The processor can inhibit certain types of interrupts by use of special interrupt mask bit. So that means we already studied an interrupt flag in the flag register. So if the in 8086 in 8086 microprocessor, if the interrupt flag is clear and an interrupt request occurs on the interrupt request input, it is ignored. So the 8086 in 8086 processor, all the hardware interrupts initiated to INTR pin are maskable by clearing interrupt flag. Then the interrupt whose request has to be definitely accepted or cannot be rejected by the processor are called non-maskable interrupt. And the interrupt initiated through NMI pin and all software interrupts are non-maskable interrupt. So they have a high priority. The next is vectored and non-vectored interrupt. When an interrupt signal is accepted by the processor, the program controller automatically branches to a specific address that is called vector address. Then the interrupt is called vectored interrupt. In these vector addresses, the interrupt service routines are stored. So that means in the case of vectored interrupt, the program control automatically branches to the specific address where the ISR that means interrupt service routines are stored. So that type of interrupts are called vectored interrupt. But in non-vectored interrupt, the interrupting device should supply the address of ISR to be executed in response to the interrupt. So in this case, the interrupting device itself specify the address of the ISR. And all the 8086 interrupts are vectored interrupt. The vector address of an 8086 is obtained from the vector table implemented in the first 1 kilobytes memory space, that is from 0000H to 003FFH. So in 8086, all the interrupts are vectored interrupts. So the vector addresses are specified in a vector table. So that table is 1 kilobytes size memory space. It is from 0000H to 03FFH. Next, we can see interrupt cycle and interrupt response sequence that we have already discussed. We can see the 3 steps. When a microprocessor receives an interrupt signal after executing current instruction, it issues a INTA signal, that means acknowledgement signal, and stop the execution of the normal program and save the status of various registers, that is IP, CS, flag register, PSW registers into the stack. Now the control will be transferred to the vector location where the interrupt service routine is stored. That means our ISR will be executed. End of the ISR, there will be a I return. That means there will be a return statement will be there. So that will return back to the main program. So at the end of the ISR, the stored status of the registers in the stack is restored to the respective registers and the processor resumes the normal program execution from the point where it was interrupted. So the control is given back to the main program and the main program will execute. This is the interrupt response sequence. Here we can see that we are executing the main program, and whenever an interrupt occurs, we have to store all the content of this PSW, CS and IP to the stack. That means here we can see that here in the case of in the 8086, an external device can send a signal to the interrupt signal to the processor through the pin NMI or INTR. While that time the CPU is executing a program. So the CPU first completes the execution of the current instruction. The IP is then incremented to the point to the next instruction. the CPU then acknowledges the requesting device on through the pin INTA, that is interrupt acknowledgement pin. And if it is NMI, then it will directly acknowledge the signal. And if it is a INTR means it will check the interrupt flag. And interrupt flag is set means the interrupt request is acknowledged using the INTA pin. And if the interrupt flag is not set means the interrupt requests are ignored. Then after the interrupt is acknowledged, CPU computes the vector address. That means the address of the ISR. So that means here from the in vector table, it will get the address of the address of the ISR. Then the content of IP and CS now point to the address of the next instruction of the main program from which the execution to be continued after executing the ISR. So the PSW is pushed to the stack. That means the content of the IP, the CS are pushed to the stack. Then then the interrupt flag should be cleared, and the control is then transferred to the interrupt service routine for serving the interrupting device. And then the new address of this ISR is found from the interrupt vector table, and the execution of the ISR will start. Then after that, after completing this ISR, after execution of this ISR, then again the control will be returned back to the main program. So that means if after starting this ISR, if further any interrupts are to be responded to the during the time of the first interrupt is being served, then the IF should again set to 1 by the ISR that is for the first interrupt. And if the interrupt flag is not set, the subsequent interrupt signal will not be acknowledged by the processor till the current one is completed. And the programmable interrupt controller is used for managing such multiple interrupts and based on their priorities. And at the end of the ISR, the last instruction will be IReturn. And when the CPU executes IReturn, the content of the flags IP, CS, which we are stored in the stack, that will be retrieved to the respective registers. And the execution continues onwards from the address received by the IP and CS. Then interrupt vector table. So in the case of interrupt vector table, the first 1 kilobytes of memory of 8086, that is from 00000H to 003FFH. This set aside as a table of storing the starting address of interrupt service procedure. Since 4 bytes are required for storing the starting address of ISP, the table can hold 256 interrupt procedures. In the figure, we can see that here we can see that there are type 0 through type FFH. There are 256 interrupts are there. So here we can see that type 0, that is reserved for divide error, then type 1 reserved for single step error, type 2 reserved for NMI, and type 4 reserved for INTO, and type 3 is INT single byte instruction. Then remaining reserved for 2 byte instruction, that is the different INT type, that INT n instructions. So here we can see that the first type 0, we can see that it is starting from the starting address of the ISP, that is the starting address of ISP is often called interrupt vector or interrupt pointer. Therefore, the table is referred as interrupt vector table. And in this table, the IP value is put in as low word of the vector, and CS is put in high vector. So that means here we can see that there are 4 bytes are required for storing the starting address of ISPs. That means content of IP and content of CS. Next, we can see the priority of interrupts. If two or more interrupts occur at the same time, then the highest priority interrupt will be serviced first, and then the next highest priority interrupt will be serviced. Non-maskable interrupts having highest priority than maskable interrupt. Interrupt with the lowest vector address has the highest priority. Then we can see the handling of INTR. So how we can handle this INTR? So the processor 8086 provides the pin INTR that has the lowest priority when compared to NMI. So the INTR signal is level triggered and can be masked by resetting the interrupt flag, and it is externally synchronized with the high transition of clock signal. For INTR signal to be responded to its next instruction cycle, it must go high in the last cycle of the current instruction or before that. Then the INTR request appeared that in the last clock cycle of the current instruction or before that, then only the processor will respond to that INTR signal in the next instruction cycle. If the INTR request appears after the last clock cycle of the current instruction, then the processor will respond to that INTR signal after execution of the next instruction. Then the status of the pending interrupts is checked at the end of each instruction cycle. And then if the IF flag, that is interrupt flag, is set, the processor ready to respond to any INTR interrupt. And if interrupt flag is reset, means the processor will not serve any interrupt appearing at that pin. Then once the processor responds to an INTR signal, the IF is automatically reset. That means if one wants the processor to further respond to any type of INTR signal, the IF should again to be set. Then here we can see the log signal. That means when an external device interrupts the processor and the pin log goes low at the trailing edge of the first ALE signal. You can see that in the timing diagram. You can see that at the trailing edge of the first ALE pulse, this goes low, and it will actually preventing the other devices to request for the bus for any other purposes. That means lock remains low till the last of the next machine cycle. So it will not allow the other signal to send any interrupt signal for the request of the bus for any other purposes. Then with the trailing edge of lock, the INTA goes low. You can see in the timing diagram at the trailing edge of this lock, the INTA goes low and remains low for the two clock states before returning back to the high state. It remains high till the start of the next machine cycle. That means next trailing edge of the ALE. So the INTA again goes low, remains low for two states before returning to the high state. The first trailing edge of ALE floats the bus AD0 to AD7. We can see in the timing diagram. That means the first trailing at the edge of this ALE floats the bus AD0 to AD7, while the second trailing edge prepares the bus to accept the type of the interrupt. That means it can accept any type of interrupt. The type of interrupt remains on the bus for a period of 2 cycles. So these are the points we have discussed. Lower priority than NMI, it's a level triggered, and the type of INTR is decided by external device like a programmable interrupt controller. It can active or deactivate based on the interrupt flag, and once it is serviced, IF is automatically reset. Now in order to receive INTR, programmer should set the IF again. Then the lock prevents access of buses by any other device. Lock will be 0 from trailing edge of ALE, and lock remains 0 till start of next machine cycle. And INT will be low for 2 clock cycles in the first machine cycle and becoming high at the end of the first machine cycle. So INTA again goes low in the second machine cycle. Then first trailing edge of ALE floats AD0 to AD7, but the second ALE trailing edge prepares the bus to accept type of the interrupt. Thank you.